Stanley Kubrick made his actors do 127 takes of a single scene, drove his lead actress to a nervous breakdown, and created what many now consider the most terrifying hotel in cinema history, all while spending 500 days shooting a movie that was supposed to take just a couple of weeks. I've watched The Shining probably 15 times, and honestly, it gets more disturbing with each viewing. There's something about Kubrick's obsessive attention to detail that makes every frame feel wrong in the best possible way. The man was notorious for his perfectionism. He literally had the hedge maze built and rebuilt multiple times because the original wasn't geometrically perfect enough for his vision. Jack Nicholson delivers what I consider his most unhinged performance here. And that terrifying "here's Johnny" moment, pure improvisation. Kubrick encouraged Nicholson to go completely off script during his breakdown scenes because he wanted genuine madness captured on camera. The result is absolutely chilling. Now, Shelley Duvall catches heat for her performance as Wendy, but people don't realize Kubrick literally psychologically tormented her during filming. He isolated her from the cast, made her do countless retakes, and constantly criticized her acting. What we see on screen goes beyond acting. It's genuine emotional exhaustion and terror bleeding through. The film cost $19 million back in 1980, which was massive for a horror movie at the time. Kubrick spent months perfecting single shots, including that iconic Steadicam sequence following Danny on his big wheel through endless corridors. They had to invent new camera techniques just to achieve his vision. The famous bathroom scene where Jack breaks through the door, they built multiple doors because Nicholson kept destroying them too quickly with his axe. This movie completely transformed horror cinema forever. Before The Shining, horror was mostly about monsters and jump scares. Kubrick proved that true terror comes from psychological breakdown and isolation. The influence shows everywhere today. From The Babadook to Hereditary, filmmakers are still copying his techniques decades later. Stephen King absolutely hated Kubrick's adaptation. He felt Kubrick missed the supernatural elements and focused too much on Jack's descent into madness. King was so frustrated he made his own TV miniseries version in 1997 to tell the story properly. Personally, I think Kubrick's version is superior because it leaves more to your imagination, and imagination is always scarier than explicit explanation. The deeper themes here revolve around toxic masculinity, domestic violence, and the cycle of abuse, all wrapped in supernatural horror. Jack doesn't simply go crazy. He reveals who he really was underneath the surface. The hotel strips away his facade and exposes the monster that was always there. That's what makes it truly terrifying. This film launched careers and destroyed others. It made Kubrick a legend, but nearly broke Shelley Duvall. The movie won no major awards when it came out, but it's now considered one of the greatest horror films ever made. Pretty wild how time changes perspective. Alright, having said all that, let's now get into the meat of the story. Jack Torrance drives up a winding mountain road to the Overlook Hotel in Colorado. He's there for a job interview with Stuart Ullman, the hotel manager. Ullman explains the position: winter caretaker for the massive resort that closes every winter when heavy snow cuts off all road access for 5 months. Ullman tells Jack about the previous winter caretaker, Charles Grady. Grady suffered from cabin fever, went stir-crazy, and killed his wife and twin daughters with an axe before taking his own life. Ullman asks if this bothers Jack. Jack says the isolation doesn't concern him. He actually looks forward to the solitude because he plans to use the time for writing. At home in Boulder, we meet Jack's wife, Wendy, and their 5-year-old son, Danny. Danny has psychic abilities and talks to his imaginary friend, Tony, who lives in his mouth. Tony shows Danny disturbing visions of the future, including images of the Overlook Hotel and blood pouring from elevators. Danny experiences a traumatic vision and loses consciousness. Wendy takes him to a doctor who questions them about Danny's invisible friend. The doctor learns that Jack dislocated Danny's shoulder during a drinking episode 5 months earlier when he was drunk. Jack has been sober since that incident. The Torrance family arrives at the Overlook Hotel on closing day. They meet Dick Halloran, the hotel's head cook. Halloran gives them a tour of the kitchen and hotel facilities. While Wendy and Jack explore other areas, Halloran talks privately with Danny. Halloran tells Danny he has a special ability called The Shining, the power to see things that happened in the past and things that will happen in the future. Halloran explains he has the same gift. He warns Danny that the hotel has a troubled history and specifically tells him to stay away from room 237. Halloran gives Danny his phone number in Florida and says if Danny ever needs help, he should call out with his mind and Halloran will come. All hotel staff members leave for the winter. The Torrance family is now completely alone in the the enormous 200-room hotel. Jack sets up his typewriter in the Colorado lounge and begins his daily writing routine. Wendy handles cooking, cleaning, and caring for Danny. Danny explores the hotel on his big-wheel tricycle, riding through the long carpeted corridors. The camera follows him as he makes sharp turns around corners and rides past countless rooms and doorways. During one exploration, Danny turns a corner and sees two young girls standing at the end of a hallway. The girls are identical twins wearing matching blue dresses. They speak in unison, asking Danny to come play with them forever and ever and ever. Blood suddenly covers the walls behind them. Danny covers his eyes, and when he looks again, the girls are gone. 1 month later, Jack sits at his typewriter but writes nothing. He throws a tennis ball against the wall of the Colorado lounge repeatedly. When Wendy brings him breakfast, he snaps at her irritably about interrupting his work. A massive blizzard hits the area. All phone lines go dead, and radio communication stops working. The family is now completely cut off from the outside world with no way to call for help. Danny continues having psychic visions. He sees blood cascading from the hotel's elevators, filling the lobby. He witnesses violent scenes from the hotel's past through his shining ability. Danny starts talking more frequently to Tony, who appears as a voice coming through Danny's finger. Jack discovers the hotel's grand ballroom, which is empty and dark. Suddenly, the room fills with people dressed in 1920s clothing, music plays, and the ballroom comes alive with a party. Jack approaches the bar where Lloyd, a ghostly bartender, serves him drinks. He confesses his frustrations about his wife and writing to Lloyd and talks about how Wendy constantly interrupts him, and sometimes he feels like he could hurt her. Wendy finds Jack in the ballroom, but she sees only an empty room with Jack talking to no one. She tells Jack that Danny seems troubled and suggests they should leave the hotel. Jack explodes in rage, shouting at Wendy about his responsibilities as caretaker. He accuses her of never supporting him and always undermining his work. Jack attends another ghostly party in the ballroom. In the men's room, he meets Delbert Grady, an elegantly dressed waiter. Grady reveals he's the same man who murdered his family. Grady tells Jack he's always been the caretaker at the Overlook. He says Jack's wife and son are trying to get him in trouble with the hotel management. Grady suggests Jack needs to correct his family, like Grady corrected his own. Danny, drawn by his psychic abilities and curiosity, enters room 237 despite Halloran's warning. Inside the bathroom, he finds a naked woman sitting in the bathtub. She rises and walks toward him with open arms. As she embraces Danny, she transforms into a hideous, rotting old woman with decaying flesh. Danny screams and runs from the room. Jack finds Danny outside room 237. Danny has visible bruises around his neck in the shape of fingers. Danny won't speak about what happened. When Wendy sees the bruises, she immediately accuses Jack of hurting Danny. Jack becomes defensive and angry, denying he touched Danny. He suggests Wendy caused the injuries herself and is trying to blame him. Wendy goes to check on Jack's writing progress in the Colorado lounge. She finds his typewriter surrounded by hundreds of pages of manuscript. Every single page contains the same sentence typed over and over in different arrangements. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Some pages have the sentence typed normally, others have it centered. Some have it in paragraph form. Jack catches Wendy reading his work. He confronts her on the main staircase while she holds a baseball bat for protection. Jack delivers a menacing monologue about his responsibilities as caretaker and how Wendy has been interfering with his work. He claims he would never hurt Wendy or Danny, but his tone and expression suggest violence. As Jack advances up the stairs, Wendy swings the bat and strikes him in the head, knocking him unconscious. Wendy drags Jack's unconscious body through the hotel to the food storage pantry. She locks him inside, trapping him behind the heavy door. Danny uses his shining ability to psychically contact Halloran in Florida. Halloran immediately senses Danny's terror and distress. He tries calling the hotel but gets no answer due to the downed phone lines. Halloran books an emergency flight to Denver and rents a snowcat vehicle to reach the hotel through the dangerous winter storm. Jack wakes up locked in the storage room. The ghost of Grady appears and speaks to him through the door. Grady expresses disappointment that Jack hasn't dealt with his family properly. He unlocks the door from the outside, freeing Jack to complete his mission. Jack retrieves a fire axe from the hotel's emergency equipment. He begins systematically hunting for Wendy and Danny throughout the massive hotel. He calls out for them in a sing-song voice, pretending everything is normal while carrying the deadly weapon. Jack finds Wendy in their private apartment. She tries to reason with him, but Jack has completely lost his sanity. He chases her through the hotel corridors, swinging the axe at walls and doors. Wendy runs into a bathroom and locks the door behind her. Jack begins chopping through the bathroom door with his axe. Wood wood splinters fly as he creates a large hole. Jack sticks his head through the opening and grins maniacally at the terrified Wendy. He delivers his most famous line, "Here's Johnny," referencing Ed McMahon's introduction of Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. Wendy fights back with a kitchen knife, slashing Jack's hand through the door opening. While Jack recoils in pain, Wendy escapes through the bathroom window. Jack abandons his pursuit of Wendy and goes to find Danny. Halloran arrives at the Overlook Hotel and parks the snowcat outside the main entrance. He enters through the lobby, calling out to see if anyone is there. The hotel appears empty and silent. As Halloran walks through the Colorado Lounge, Jack suddenly appears and strikes him down with the axe, killing him instantly. Danny witnesses Halloran's murder from the hotel balcony. Realizing his father has become completely dangerous, Danny runs outside into the hotel's elaborate hedge maze. The maze consists of tall hedges arranged in complex geometric patterns with numerous dead ends and false paths. Jack follows Danny into the maze, pursuing his son through the snowy pathways while swinging his axe. He calls Danny's name repeatedly, sometimes in a normal voice, sometimes shouting threats. The snow makes tracking easy as both father and son leave clear footprints. Danny demonstrates intelligence beyond his years. He backtracks through his own footprints in the snow, then carefully steps sideways off the path and hides behind a hedge wall. When Jack follows the trail, he passes directly by Danny's hiding spot without seeing him. Danny waits until Jack moves deeper into the maze, then quietly retraces his steps back toward the entrance. Jack becomes lost in the maze's confusing layout, growing increasingly frustrated and disoriented as he searches for his son. Danny escapes the maze and finds Wendy near the hotel entrance. They quickly get into Halloran's snowcat and drive away from the Overlook Hotel. As they disappear into the night, Jack remains trapped and lost in the freezing maze. The next morning, Jack sits motionless in the snow deep within the hedge maze. He has frozen to death during the night. His face is covered with frost and ice, his eyes stare straight ahead, and his expression is frozen in a haunting grimace. Jack freezes to death in the maze while Danny and Wendy escape safely in Halloran's snowcat. The final shot shows a mysterious photograph on the hotel wall. Jack appears in a July 4th party photo from 1921, suggesting he may have always been connected to the Overlook Hotel. Was Jack possessed by the hotel's evil spirits, or was he always capable of this violence? What's your take on that creepy ending photograph? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe for more classic horror breakdowns and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads.